Starting a business is always a really risky thing. We were lucky to have the opportunity to do that when we were so young. We started this maybe when we were 21, I think. We have clients that we're sourcing G-classes and Land Cruisers, as well as sports cars and just little manual versions of cars you find here in the States. This is a business that my best friend and step cousin and I have been working on forever.
Dutch Safari Company is a concierge, importing a car for a client and fixing it so that they're not going to have any sort of issues. It's really cool to help someone go through that entire experience because there's so many things that could go wrong, especially if they did it themselves. So it's really fun and rewarding to have that happy customer at the end of the day who's like, I really love you guys and I love what you're doing and I really hope that you just keep doing what you're doing.
Land Rover is our bread and butter, and that's where we got started, and that's still sort of our niche. Moving out of the Defenders and into the Range Rovers, you think about what people are nostalgic for. And a lot of people our age, their neighbor or their parents had a Range Rover Classic in the driveway when they were younger. We just started bringing in these Range Rover Classics because nobody had really done it. We've rolled with the punches and we've made a lot of adjustments, finally at a place where we're pretty happy with the reputation that we've developed. For me, what it's about is hopping in the car and being excited about it and having a smile on my face and getting that same reaction from other people. We've gotten so busy here at the shop that other than driving these cars to and from work, we don't get out on adventures as much as we want to these days. And so Nick and I decided it was really important for us to carve out some time to do that and remember why we're doing it and get in our cars and see if they actually live up to everything that we say they do. We decided that we wanted to put Safari as a way of life, our motto in our cars and our standard of quality, to the test.
We took a 1975 V8 Range Rover and a 1987 VM diesel Range Rover 1,200 miles round trip to Big Bend. There's a big reliability thing for Land Rovers, and those are regarded as not super reliable versions. And so one of the things that I personally wanted to do is show that there's unreliable vehicles, but that's because of unreliable owners. And so I wanted to show that a really well put together vehicle can do anything. Encountered a tornado, a hailstorm, and the Land Rover manual almost lighting on fire in the back of our car. So it was definitely a lot of trials and tribulations, but it was just so wonderful to be able to get out there and really experience the truck. So Erica and I pretty much grew up together. Both of our sisters were born at the same day at the same hospital. So that's how our parents kind of connected. It was just kind of like a family friends thing. We always had combined birthdays because our birthdays were so close to each other. And so we just always kind of been that team.
When I was in college, I went to Africa on a safari with my family, and at that exact same time, Nick bought a 1972 Land Rover series. We came back and spent the rest of the summer driving around out on our adventures, trying to figure out how to never have real jobs. We wanted to stay on safari because that's what we called it, and that's all we wanted to do. And the Dutch aspect came because both of us are Dutch, and that was an important thing to us. And so my interest in cars really started in the Land Rover specifically, and it was never about the car, it was about where it could take me. And out of that, I kind of developed a love for the 4x4s in general.
Basically, that series, we decided we were going to go to Patagonia in it. We had this little notebook with literally every single thing written down, what we were going to do to that truck.
We were originally planning to do it in the series, and after about 9 months of planning, we realized that wasn't realistic.
And I found something called D90, and I started looking, and I was like, oh my God, we could buy one of these and import it from Europe, and they'd be way cheaper than fixing up my series, and then the series would still be a series at the end of the day.
We had a bunch of family over there that we could go stay with. So we were going to go over to Holland and buy a Defender 110 to import for ourselves.
We kind of put that plan together and realized that you could potentially bring some in and have them for a little while, get to play with them, and then sell them on. And
we could buy 2 Defenders, pay for the cost of the trip if we're already going through all this work.
Then we decided to put a little business plan together, get a loan, and go over to Europe and buy some cars.
From that little passion project, we realized there was a real demand for the service. A lot of people have dream cars, but they're intimidated about going to find it and how to get it and get a title for it. We figured out all the red tape of shipping and logistics and importing. So we started going over every 6 months whenever we could on vacations. And we would just drive around Europe and buy a handful of cars and ship them back and sell them. And so that's what it's turned into.
The idea of a collectible Range Rover is pretty recent. What I like about Range Rovers is they all kind of look the same, but a lot of them can be totally different from each other. The two-door came out in 1970, and it was a series on coils with a V8. It was not refined, it was very simple, very basic. You take that all the way up to 1994 with the last two-door ever made, which was a 200 TDI diesel. And from the outside, if you put those two together, the average person would not really think that there's too many years between the two. And it's very cool because they took a car and then they tweaked it every couple of years to kind of help the customer, to please the market and give them what they want and make it safer, make it quieter, make it more fuel efficient, make it a little bit easier to maintain. And they're quite underappreciated, which is something that I really like because I like bringing something underappreciated and trying to show people why I appreciate it. 1979 and below cars are very collectible in Europe, and so we're competing with European collectors. And what we want to do though is bring them in because they are so different than the new ones, and they're so much more old truck than Range Rover. And it's such a great experience to drive one, especially off-road, that we feel like Americans have to be a part of the experience. Europeans can't have all the fun with all the Range Rovers. We've been on probably 4 business trips so far over to Europe. The challenges of buying cars in Europe are, first of all, finding the cars. There's a ton of different websites. There's a lot of word of mouth there. There's a lot of classified ads, things that you're not going to be seeing on the internet. And then from there, even just contacting the owners of the cars, you have a 30% chance that they're going to either respond to you, answer your phone call, or if they answer your phone call, that they're going to speak your language or be interested in speaking your language, whether they speak it or not. People are very, very protective of their cars. They won't let you drive it. They will barely let you touch it. You say, oh, there's this wrong with it, that wrong with it. No. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. So it's really tough too because there's a lot of dishonesty and there's a lot of discrepancy in what people think of as quality. And then from there, you have the idea of 2 Americans going to buy a car in Europe, and the Europeans see that as an opportunity to screw the American. So it's very tough to negotiate. There's deregistration processes in different countries that you basically have to get the old owner to be interested in helping you do, because they can be quite complicated depending on the country. And if you don't do it, then the car's not deregistered, which means it's still in the system, which means all sorts of bad things can happen later.
We have basically figured out which ports are the best ones to use. We've figured out all of the paperwork that needs to happen, and it's not black and white. Getting the titles for these cars, it's a gray area, and there's a lot of massaging that has to happen. And because we've been doing this for 4 years now, we know the right people and we know how to do it so that there's not going to be a lot of friction. For the most part, we're sourcing from Spain, just because it's a really dry climate there, so you have a lot less rust than the northern countries. But we still kind of have to work all over because, a lot of the clients are looking for specific Italian sports cars, and we definitely have our preferences for which countries to work in. Some of them are a lot easier than others. We've probably imported 35 of our own inventory, and then we're doing a handful of client cars each month. We also export over to Europe. We don't want to be a car dealer. We don't want to just have a shop full of cars and someone comes in, but what we kind of think of our inventory as is a lookbook. The idea of drop shipping a car is a foreign, scary idea to people. So they like to come in and touch the cars and see the quality and say, okay, I really like this, but what I'd really like is this, only a diesel version in a different color. And so it's a really good jumping off point for people to come in and understand the process. And they like to meet us face to face. It makes them feel more comfortable and they get a better sense of what they want.
I definitely think that young people are interested in more the idea of adventure, and I think that there's also a touch of nostalgia. There's a lot of people from our generations who went to school in it. Their friends had one. Grew up basically in the back of a Range Rover. And the series vehicle there really isn't that nostalgia for because there are very few of them in the United States. So I think the series is more like a cool thing, and the Defender too, but the Range Rover is affordable nostalgia that actually works. And that's the thing, it's a usable classic because there's so many classic cars that aren't usable for an everyday drive, and it's tough to commit, especially a younger person because we don't have high income. So it's a lot tougher to go, hey, I'm just gonna go balls to the wall and buy this 1980s coupe and hope to God that I don't spend $10,000 every year to maintain it.
Reliability is a big concern for most people with classic cars in general, but specifically Land Rovers and Range Rovers because they have a reputation. That's exactly what we're trying to combat because human ownership is the factor that comes in and makes cars unreliable because you have a bunch of deferred maintenance. So people buy a classic car, it's running and driving, they're excited about it, and then all of a sudden, oh, this breaks, and then a month later, this breaks, and this has to be replaced, and then you have a bad taste in your mouth and you're all upset about the money you have to spend. And to us, a daily driver, classic car means there's not a single mechanical or electrical issue. You get in, turn the key, and you can drive across the country. That's what we're trying to really establish ourselves with, is that quality, especially because we're working with a lot of younger people who don't want to wrench on their own cars. They want to have the classic experience, but they also want to just service it and get an oil change every 6 months like a normal car. So we're trying to bring that classic experience to people without any of the headaches and without any of the reliability or the uncertainty that is traditional in the classic car market. Safari as a way of life is all about appreciating the time in between point A and point B. Think about how much time you spend in your car, just commuting to and from work, running to the grocery store. Classic cars are a way to reclaim that time. In these cars, you're so engaged with them.
I think safari as a way of life means to just really always be exploring. Eric and I it's funny because we both have the same tendencies. If we are somewhere and we see like a little mountaintop, we both have to hop out of the car and run to the top of the mountain just to see it, just to feel it. The feeling of never stopping exploring, because exploring is how you learn stuff, how you see stuff, and the experiences you get from it shape you as a person.
We were talking on this drive about how there's no other car that looks as proper in so many different locations. And these are the most capable off-road cars ever. When you get it in the dirt, you know that's what it wants to be doing.
There's a lot of purpose-built vehicles, and as Land Rover says, it's a car for every occasion. It was just so wonderful to be able to get out there and really experience the truck, because the idea of driving it and really using it for what it's for, taking it off-road, up ridge lines, through the rocky parts all day, and then drive it back home, are just awesome. I think that the greatest thing about starting this business is just the self-recognition of what we're trying to do for people and how much it's appreciated.
Driving a classic car is one of the biggest ways to connect with people. People just get excited about what you're driving and they smile at you and it starts conversations. It's about the experience. It's about the feeling you get when you hop in that, and that's undeniable. So if we can take out the unreliability and the uncertainty that is traditionally tied to classic cars, then we can just give people that experience. There's always a huge risk. We know there's always more that we have to do and ways we can improve. There's just this whole self-reliance thing. It's like us, if we don't make this work, then we don't get a paycheck. That's also what motivates us so much. It keeps us going because what's the alternative? We want to drive around in Land Rovers, and we want to find Land Rovers for other people to drive around in, and we're going to do whatever we have to make that work.